Hey, what's up guys, Alex here. Thank you for checking this video and welcome to the 10th part of the series of tutorial WordPress 101 for beginner developers. Welcome again and congratulations to me. I mean, this is the 10th part. This is video number 10 of the series of tutorials. It's amazing. It's a big milestone for him that I suffer of a big case of procrastination. So being able to reach tutorial number 10 of the same topic, of the same argument of the WordPress development is a huge achievement for me. So I'm super happy, and also I'm super happy about all the response and the positive feedbacks. And I just reached 200 followers on YouTube. I know it's kind of nothing. It's like a really small amount of users compared to the humongous amount of users in the internet, but I'm super happy and I'm glad for each one of you that are listening to this tutorial. Also, I'm super happy for you, random listener that is not subscribed to my channel, but you just stumble on this tutorial and you're wondering who's this guy who's mumbling in the microphone and is not showing any type of code. It's me, it's Alex. But anyway, I just want to say thank you to check this video, and I hope you will find it useful and entertaining as I do, of course. Haha. But let's get started. So the last lesson we tackled the first part of the WP query post, the WP query argument. This is one of the, as I said, the core functionality of WordPress to call pretty much every type of content from your CMS, from your administration panel, printed however you want. So you can call a post, a page, a category, you can call a thumbnail, you can call a custom taxonomy, a custom post type, you can call whatever you want, and you can handle it and manage and associate it to a specific template or do exactly absolutely whatever you want. But of course you have to follow specific rules. You have to call specific classes, functions, actions to clean what you're doing, or you're gonna leave a mess. And if you're curious about the WP query, the first part, please check the previous video, the lesson number 9, because it's kind of long and sometimes complicated, but it's really useful. And if you learn how to handle properly the WP query, you're gonna open the doors of the WordPress development. You can develop pretty much everything, every type of theme that you see on the most famous theme repository like Theme Forest, or the actual also repository for WordPress. You can develop whatever theme, no limitation at all, just thanks to this WP query. This is one of the basic stuff that you have to learn, so it's really important. So right now, we are at this status. We have our just one single, the latest blog post published on top of everything in our homepage, and then we have a collection of other blog posts from a specific category, from a specific section, and blah blah blah, and so on, so on. Now what I want to do, I want to clean up a little bit this mess. I want to remove all these posts that I don't need, and I just want to print the 3 most recent blog posts on my top row here, where there's just one blog post, and I want to print it in a kind of better way. So let's do it. First of all, let's clean our code in the home page, because I don't want this kind of code. And to do that, I suggest you to comment the code. So we are in the development process of our team. So even if we decide to remove a specific section because we don't need it, always comment that section. Don't delete it, because you can always need that previous code, or you can always go back on your step and say, okay, no, I actually need that section, or what was the code that I wrote that it was really cool and I don't remember. So while you're in development, just comment. Don't worry if your code looks messy. You can always clean it up later, but never delete your source code. Always keep a copy. If you want to delete it right now, also during development, I suggest you to duplicate the page and keep a copy just for safety. Nothing major. Anyway, we are in our first row, and I want to print just the 3 recent posts. So I have to change these parameters, and actually I want to convert these into an array call with all the attributes. So I'm going to call, as I did before, args equal array, and I can call the type. Let's close it. Let's grab our variable and let's put it in here, save it. Let's go check our front page, reload, and we have our 3 posts. So now what I want to do is just styling. I want to change the markup. I want to change the template part that WordPress is calling to generate this content in HTML. So to do that, I can do 2 things. I could like write the inline code, the inline markup right here, where's this get template part, or I could use a specific template just for this part and override this get post format. Like, don't use a post format to select a template, but select my own template. So because this section is the last blog post, so it's kind of a featured content in a top part of my home page, I can create this template part called content featured and apply a specific style for just this kind of post. So let's do that. Let's include the second parameter as featured. And now what I have to do, I have to create a new file called content-featured.php. Content-featured.php. If you have no idea what I'm talking about, I suggest you to check the video number 7 where I talk about post formats and how to create specific template parts for specific post format. In this case, I'm creating a content featured template part that I'm calling dynamically just on the first section. In this file, I can customize the visualization of my featured post. So just to speed up a little bit the process, I will just copy the entire code in my content.php file, that is the standard content template part for my blog post, and I will copy inside my newly generated content featured file. So paste it here, and now I can modify to reflect what I want to do, what I want to show with my in my featured row on top of my page. And that's it. This is the structure I want to do for my content feature. So I have my article container with the usual post ID and the post class that comes with my blog post, and I check if this blog post has a post thumbnail. I print it if it has a post thumbnail, otherwise I just print the title. In my case, I have post thumbnails for all the posts that I'm calling, so I will have a featured image on top and the title at the bottom in a h1 class. Now, if I do this, reload, what is gonna happen? Of course, the structure, the HTML markup, doesn't recognize what I want to do, that he doesn't know that I want my 3 blog posts nicely aligned close to each other. So what I have to do, I just have to change the code, the markup code that WordPress is generating. And if we go in the page home, you will notice here we have a wrapper, a container that it's 100%, so it's called XS, and inside here I'm just generating and repeating the loop with the article with the post classes. So it's 100% div container with no restriction and no structure. So what I can do, I can just delete this, use this one to close the row, open another row to not damage the HTML structure, and now I have this separated row inside here, and I can create, if I want, the structure that I want here, the markup. So call XS 12 and call as small 4, close it, and done. Save it, go refresh, and that's it. Now I have the structure that I wanted. I have the 3 latest blog post nicely aligned because I use the Bootstrap HTML structure, the proper markup to align that. And in a separated row, I have my home content and my sidebar and my footer as usual. If you notice here, I didn't insert these structure, the separation of the column inside the content feature, because you never know if you want to use this content feature in other pages of your WordPress theme. If you want the same exact structure for this content, having just a post thumbnail and the title in a 2 columns page or a single column page, you can use it just calling the template part content featured and not worrying about the actual markup HTML inside. So this is a logic, like a component-based logic, that gives you the ability to recall a specific part of your template without worrying about the structure that is too tight, and you can pretty much print whatever you want, whenever you want, however you want, wherever you want. So no problem. Now, as you can see here, I have 3 nicely aligned blog posts, and I have pretty much the last blog post of every category. So I have 1 news, 1 reviews, and 1 tutorial. And you can see here these are the latest blog posts that I published. So a light bulb, umbrella, and rocket, and are specific from tutorials, review, and categories. If I want exactly this structure every time I publish a blog post, I mean, if I want for the first row just the latest blog post of each category of these 3 main categories, how can I do it? For example, if I publish a new blog post that it's gonna be like another tutorials, like let's do it right now. If I publish tutorial post, this is a tutorial post, and I click tutorial and I upload again the light bulb picture so I can see what I'm talking about. Now I have, as my latest blog post, I have 1 tutorial post, another tutorial post, reviews, news, etc., etc. If I reload, you're gonna see we have 2 tutorial posts and then 1 reviews post, because of course WordPress grabs the latest 3 posts of my blog loop. But as I said, if I want to always keep the structure, I want just the latest blog post for each categories. How can I do it here? How can I print just that specific part? So I can do it in 2 ways. First of all, I have to limit the categories I want those blog posts be printed. So for example, if I create a new category, like I create the random category and I change this post into a random post. This is a random post, and I select random, and my featured image is not this one, but instead is just this bland blue texture that I created, and I update it and refresh it. I'm gonna see this random post because it's the WordPress code just calls the latest 3 posts. But if I want to limit these 3 posts to just those 3 specific categories, I can just create another argument and use an array of values for those specific categories. So the syntax is simply as a string, as usual, category underscore underscore n equal, and inside here I can write another array. I can open another array, and inside the array I can put all the IDs of the categories that I want to include in this loop. So let's go check our IDs. The news as an ID of 1 is the first one. The reviews as an ID of 9, and the tutorials as an ID of 8. So I have to include in my array the numbers 1, 9, 8. Save it. Go in our front end, reload, and you will notice that we still have the same random post from a different category. Actually, for like to show you better, I can edit a content featured file and print also the category in maybe in a small tag, so I can see which category I'm referring to. Save it, refresh it, and here you'll notice something weird. So we set in our PHP file to call just the last post inside the categories tutorials, reviews, and news, but here we have these random posts insert also in the category random. So why it's happening? Basically, WordPress gives you the ability to put one single blog post in multiple categories, and if you call a specific category, no matter which other category is this post into, you're gonna see it. So we can do, to avoid this, we can do two things. First, like the easiest thing is to just edit the post and remove the tutorials category, update it and leave it just a random. If we do that and we check the front page, we refresh it, we're gonna see now we have just tutorials, reviews, and news. We don't have the random post that is just inside the random category, but can happen that we have a specific post inside multiple categories. And if this happen and we want to limit the visualization of this kind of post, so just saying that this post, this first row has to contain just posts that are only in these three categories and not in these other random category, we can use another arguments inside our loop to specify in which category our post doesn't have to be. So let's create another parameter called category underscore not in. And also here, we can use the same array to specify multiples categories. In my case, I have to just to select the random category because I have just these other category other than use tutorials and reviews, the category that I need. So let's update this one. Let's check the category and check the ID of the random category. The ID is 10. So what I have to do, I just have to write category not double underscore not underscore in equal 10. As usual, like as I said, you could specify just a single value because we have just one category, but always put an array. You never know if you're gonna have multiple categories. It's more manageable. It's more, you can easily expand the functionality of this argument if you use by default already an array. So let's save it. Let's go in our front end, refresh it. And you notice now that even if our random post is still inside the tutorial category, we don't see it here because we excluded through the arguments category not in. Okay, now this is kind of starting looking cool, but something's gonna happen. So if, for example, I publish like this post, I change it. Let's say that this is tutorials and this is another tutorials post. This is a tutorial. Update it. We go in our front end and we update. We're gonna see that we have in our first row 2 tutorials. So 2 posts from the tutorials category because these posts are the latest posts that I published. So we have another tutorial post, light bulb and umbrella, and the first 2 are part of the same category, are inserted in the same category. What I want to do is I want the last blog post of each category. So if there's a repetition in the creation of the post, I want to skip the second tutorial and just call one single post per each category. To do that, I have to invert the logic of my WP query. So now I'm using the WP query to filter the category that I'm interested into, But in this case, our posts are at the center of the loop. So I'm calling the post inside a category. What I have to do, I have to switch it, invert it. So I have to call a category before, and I have to call just 3 specific categories. And then I have to call a post inside that specific category. So I have to loop through the categories and not loop through the post. That could be kind of confusing, but let's do it step by step without getting confused. And let's start by creating an array of arguments for our category filter. So let's call it args_cat. And also here we go with our marvelous array, because arrays are always cool. And we say that in my categories loop, I want to just include some specific categories. And the categories are these 3 categories that are already selected: tutorials, news, and reviews. As you notice here inside the include, because it's a different argument, is not a category in array, the categories has to be specified as a string. So inside a string separated by comma are still the IDs, but as a string, not as an array. Let's save this, and now we can call our function to call those specific categories and loop through those categories. Let's create a variable called categories. This variable is gonna store inside all the categories that we're looking for, and to store this information inside this variable, we have to use the function get categories. And inside, we can use our arguments that we just created, the arguments_cat, because these are the arguments that I'm looking for. So now, just to see what's inside our categories post, we can do a var dump and put inside categories and just check in our front end what's going on, what we just retrieved with our function. So as you can see here, we have our string of 3 categories, because we have our array, object array with 3 categories. The 3 categories that we selected specifically are news, reviews, and tutorial. Inside there are all these other bunch of gibberish information that we actually don't need it. We just need actually the ID of the specific category, because it's the one that we need to associate to our post to call just those specific posts. So let's go back in our editor. Let's remove the var dump. Oops. Let's remove the var dump that we don't need to use. Now we have to loop through these categories array that we created. To do that, we can use a PHP function called for each categories as category. Now inside this loop, we have this for each that is looping through our 3 categories. Inside the category, we have everything we need. We have the category ID and the category name. So now we can use a specific arguments, a specific variable to call a custom WP query with just the category and the post per page limited to 1 to that specific category ID. I know explaining sounds complicated, but just follow me on this. Just copy these parameters, the arguments, actually copy the entire part where we customized our WP query and we call our latest blog post. Let's cut it and let's paste it inside the category loop. Let's indent a little bit so it's clear, it's better. So now we are looping through these 3 categories, and as I said, I want to just 1 blog post per category. So in my arguments for my WP query, I have to specify just 1 post per page, and the category has to be inside just the current category I'm looping in. So to do that, I have to call the variable $category, and I go inside the object array that is inside this category variable, and I look for the term ID. The term ID is containing, of course, the ID of the category. So I'm actually in this loop, I'm creating 3 separated WP query, and of course at the end I'm always resetting the post data so they're not gonna interfere between each other. But every time I loop it, I call just one post for this specific category, and of course it's gonna be the latest post because I didn't change the order. So let's save it and let's take a look what we did, if actually it's working. And it's working. So we have the last blog post inside the news, the last blog post inside the reviews, and the last blog post inside the tutorial. To check if it's true, if it's actually true, we can go inside here. We see that here our last blog post of the tutorial is another tutorial post, and it's here. We have news, reviews, and tutorials. We are ordering actually the categories through in a name order. So news is before tutorials, before reviews. So news, reviews, tutorials. If I delete the last blog post, I'm gonna have in order of categories rocket post, umbrella post, and light bulb post. So refresh it, and that's it. We have our first row with what we needed. We have just the latest blog post from each categories, the 3 categories that I specified. And also for today's lesson, it's everything. I hope you understood a little bit more. I hope you felt a little bit more comfortable editing the WP query. I know it's a complicated argument, and it's really, we scratched just the surface of the WP query. Please keep going. Please check the documentation of the WordPress. Now you know how it works. Now you know the specific and the proper way to edit it, the basics of the WP query. Now you can keep going, experiment with these huge classes, the huge functionality of WordPress, and you can create pretty much whatever you want with this magnificent function. As usual, thank you again for checking this video. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up or subscribe to my channel or share it. Share it on social media. I always love it when someone shares my video. I'm super grateful. So hope you enjoyed this lesson and hope to see you next time or to hear you next time. See ya.